Township Committee meeting to order. Judy, will you lead us in a salute to the flag, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mrs. Dix?
Here.
Ms. Gatto?
Here.
Mr. Gishard?
Present.
Mrs. Link?
Here.
Mayor Silva?
Here.
Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided pursuant to the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law by posting a notice of this meeting on the bulletin board in the municipal building and by sending a copy of the notice along with the agenda of this meeting to the Atlantic City Press, Atlantic County Record, Record Journal, and current newspapers, stating this meeting would take place at 6:30 p.m. Monday, October 20th, 2014, the municipal building, Mays Landing, New Jersey.
Is there a late list?
There's no late list.
We take a moment of silence for private reflection, please. First item on the agenda is a presentation from, I guess it's a combination of the Industrial Committee and the broker of record for the Industrial Committee presenting tax abatements. Tony DiDio. Tony, would you just introduce yourself formally, and Gordy, you also, please?
Yeah. He's got the microphone.
You need the microphone.
Yeah, Tony, give him, yeah.
Lolo?
Is it on, Lise? Yeah, okay.
I'm Gordon Craig. I'm the chairman of the Industrial Commission. And what we're basically here tonight is to get some direction from Township Committee on trying to institute a pilot program of payment of little taxes for the industrial park. We've had requests from one of the owners and also from our marketing director with Colliers, Tony DiDio, to see if we can be competitive with the other industrial parks in our area. I also brought Dr. Michael Buessler from Stockton College here. He has a couple things he can say towards it. And I think we're going to just give a couple of minute presentation with both, and then maybe we can have some questions back and forth and see if we can.
The floor is yours.
Just so that you know, members of the Township Committee, a presentation was made to the Industrial Commission some time ago, including the exact same witnesses. At the conclusion of that, we went through a fact-finding process and are coming here tonight for your direction as to where this can go from there.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Tony DiDio. For those who don't know me, I'm with Colliers International, and I represent the Hamilton Business Park. I really wanted to touch base, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this presentation, on some of the incentives that attract companies to New Jersey. A little hard to see, but the New Jersey Economic Opportunity Act, they call it Grow New Jersey. It's a program that is a tax incentive for employees, and they've implemented over the last few years millions and millions of dollars in incentive bonding for employee benefits into areas like Camden, Gloucester, and Burlington, Salem counties. Urban enterprise zones. This mainly is focused on 3.5% sales tax. A lot of building trade companies need to be in these zones. Some of these zones include Pleasantville, Vineland, Millville, Gloucester City. New Jersey Clean Energy Program. This is a program that gives building developers incentives on building their buildings green with solar. New Jersey incentive for energy projects, very similar, mostly on the utility side, and it offers companies, developers, incentive money to build buildings on the utility side. I threw this in because Route 295 is really a roadway that is very attractive to all distribution companies. That it's a roadway that really connects, DC to New York City. All your major distribution companies are there. I want to give you a couple of samples of projects that are in the state that offer incentives. Gateway Business Park. Companies like Goya represent this park. They offer 10, and in some situations, 10, 20-year tax abatements. They also offer sales tax incentives. This is another project, NFI Park in Florence. They offer 5-year tax abatements on all new developments. And my point is, today is the Hamilton Business Park. We need to compete against other incentive programs in the state. The only thing that we are able to offer is a pilot program, and that would be a payment in lieu of taxes, maybe 5-year tax abatement. Many municipalities are offering on much different scales, levels, smaller municipalities. I just think we need to compete. It won't hurt, it can only attract business.
May I, Tone?
Sure.
And before you speak, Doctor, given the economic climate of the county right now, obviously with the downturn in Atlantic City, and what type of an impact could you gauge that this would have if we did go into a program like this with the residents that are on the verge of losing their homes?
There's several buildings that are approved in the park. One is, well, we all know what they are. One is Harrison Beverage. The other is
The microphone.
The other is a 70,000 square foot flex building, and another 40,000 square foot industrial building. Maybe it'll give incentive to these owners to build with this tax abatement. Brings jobs on an economic level, brings ratables in the long run.
Go ahead, Roddy.
Just for my own clarification, does abatement mean zero tax, or is that a reduction in tax?
Tax abatements usually, and there's all different types, and I'm not a specialist, and hopefully the next speaker is more of a specialist in tax in lieu of taxes, but most municipalities offer a 5-year tax abatement.
And that's no tax for 5 years?
Tax for the first year. Year 6,
2046.
Okay, I got you. I just
beginning
wanted to
of
be.
year 6, you're
Yes,
paying
I got you.
100% taxes.
Yeah.
So it's usually 20, 40, 60, 80.
And the
Doctor?
benefit of the pilot aspect is that we get the money 100% of whatever they're paying, as opposed to having to divide it up among the county and the schools, things like that. We get it. So it kind of impacts those other tax collecting entities somewhat negatively, but favorably for us for once.
Similar to COA, I guess, in that respect.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah, the COA tax.
Go ahead.
may I ask a question of the witness? Tony, your company is a national company, international. And you and your company have listings for commercial properties all over the state, true?
All over the region.
And is it tough for you to sell our park in today's climate without such relief?
It's a challenge to sell Atlantic County in general, because again, 295 is the distribution hub, and there's a lot of competing parks that are offering all kind of incentives. So it's a challenge, and offering that can only bring business, can only help bring business into the park.
Now, Pleasantville has this?
Pleasantville is an urban enterprise zone.
Vineland?
Vineland, yes.
And do each of them have industrial parks or business
Yes,
parks?
they do. And they're competing on pricing. We have good incentive is we're asking $40,000 per acre for our acres here, which is very reasonable. But so is Vineland and Millville, and I'm not sure too much on Pleasantville. There's not much land available.
What about Egg Harbor Township, Tony?
Harbor Township's another urban enterprise zone, big competing, different market though. Egg Harbor City, not Township, City, I'm sorry.
Egg Harbor City, but Egg Harbor Township has an industrial park, but they're not a UEZ.
No.
Only Pleasantville and Vineland, Millville are the UEZs.
Yes.
So is it your belief, as a professional in this industry, that this, if it were to occur, would A, spark people who have already purchased property into developing? Yes?
Yes.
and also would assist you as our commercial salesperson in selling property that the Industrial Commission owns.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I have.
Would you let the doctor?
Michael Bussler, Richard Stockton College. You know, you brought up a real good point. This is a very difficult sell to residents now who are paying their full load in taxes. But the results of these things have been extremely good, and it's even needed now just to be able to compete. You look at it now, and everybody pays their taxes, and we have no development, or everybody pays their taxes, and we get some new development. They're not paying taxes in the beginning, but they are bringing jobs to the area, and the people will spend money in the area, and the idea is that perhaps that will encourage some development. The first time something like this was used, to my knowledge, in Philadelphia, when they wanted to encourage development in the residential sector because the inner city was deteriorating, they put in a 10-year tax abatement. Started in 1972, so anybody who built a new house could be free, that is zero taxes for 10 years. The current residents of the city at that time had a lot of pushback, just by saying, you know, these people are coming in and they're going to demand the same services that I'm demanding, I'm paying for it, and they're not paying for it. So it becomes a very difficult thing. But again, if you don't do something like that, you won't get development to come in at all. And this is something that will help to solve a longer-term problem. In Philadelphia, they gave a 10-year tax abatement. The city started booming with residential construction, and since that time, they've extended it 4 or 5 times. It's even in place today and continues to encourage residential development. As Tony mentioned, other towns are doing something very similar to this. It's a very difficult economy. The recession's been over for more than 5 years, yet the growth has been only about 2% nationwide. And around here, because primarily of Atlantic City, it becomes a very challenging environment to try to attract businesses to. The bottom line is you have to give somebody a deal that they almost can't refuse. And to say to them, and I'm not suggesting one plan over another, and you'll decide what's best for the township considering everybody, and I understand that. But if you can make them an offer that they can't refuse, you build here, and for instance, you pay no taxes, real estate taxes for 10 years, you know, someone's going to say, well, I was thinking about going to some other area, maybe Egg Harbor Township, maybe a little further away, but to be able to save 10 years worth of taxes, look, the building costs are about the same everywhere. You can look at the land costs, what they are, but if I can save in property taxes over a 10-year period, you know, that's enough incentive to get someone to come in here. And again, the current residents are going to have a problem with this, and I'm very sympathetic and understanding to that. But you have to do something in a weak economy. The recovery is not nearly nationwide what we thought. The problems with Atlantic City make it very difficult to attract business into this area. So if you can give them a deal that they literally can't refuse, this is a one-time deal to get a 10-year tax abatement, or to make some payment in lieu of paying taxes for the next 10 years. Or I don't know if the graduated 5-year is going to be quite enough to do it. We'll have to take a look at that. But if you can offer some incentive, that's what you're going to have to do to get businesses to relocate here. There's a lot of places they can go, and Hamilton Township has a lot to offer. But today, businesses are concerned with the bottom line.
Absolutely.
And if there's something you can do to help improve that bottom line, you're more likely to attract businesses.
I note that I see it on the TV from time to time, the commercials for New York State.
I was just going to bring that up, too.
Where you go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, they put in a 10-year, you don't have to pay any New York State income tax, and the state is booming. So it is working. And that's the way you have to sell it to local residents. I know you're going to pay more than what these newcomers are going to pay, but give it a little time. It'll spur development. It may make it more attractive so there are jobs. Now, I know some people are having difficulty hanging on to their homes even, but if we can encourage businesses to come in, create new jobs, that's really a benefit, I think, for everybody.
Just for discussion's sake, would there be conditions attached to the sale of a land with those conditions of an abatement that they would have to begin some sort of construction within that time period so that you would eliminate those who would want to just take advantage of a rising real estate market because of the abatements and not just be pretty much just trying to see if they could hold on so that they could make a few dollars on the property?
I think that we can make the program whatever everybody wants to make it. We can make that as a stipulation. I think what we first have to decide is that something that we all want to do and then take the next step forward, which is probably get the planning board involved and see if we can get designated as an area of redevelopment. And then with the planning board, the industrial commission, Phil has a lot of experience in putting this together, the pilot programs, and get us all together and massage it to something that we all want it to be. So if there's certain stipulation that they're building a certain amount of time, we can put them on there. I think that we can massage the idea to something that we all want it to be.
Okay.
Gordon, would you still be continuing, the current practice that settlement of the land does not occur until they have the planning or zoning board approval to construct to begin with?
That's a typical contractual provision.
Correct, but would this, if there were something put in place in the way of an abatement or a pilot or whatever, would we continue with the plan, the past practice that the buyer doesn't go to settlement until they have an approval? That way they aren't speculators.
They are negotiable items, but any buyer in today's sophisticated world, given today's climate, is going to require, as a condition precedent to closing, that they get the approval to build that which they want to build.
So it would stay.
That is separate and apart from the abatement. The abatement does not begin until such time as they acquire title.
That's why I was asking if we would not go to settlement without the approval, as we have been doing. So they aren't going to buy the land and it's going to lay there like the bank site on the corner of Cantillan and Atlantic, and it has never built in 25 years.
They had all the approvals.
I understand they did. I understand, but I'm just using that as an example of something that didn't get built.
And also, to avoid that, this is not transferable. So in other words, if somebody decides to do something, gets the credit, you can't turn around and flip it to somebody else.
So that's another thing that would help in the non-speculation, so yeah,
You want
good.
to avoid that. And if somebody moves within 10 years,
Could be either.
the person
Could be
coming
all.
in does not get the balance.
Could be a pilot.
It expires.
It expires. So the original, the idea is to spur development. So you spur development. Once that occurs, if they sell the building, excuse me, after 5 years, then the tax abatement goes away and the people pay what the normal rate is based on assessed value.
I was going to say, it might help a lot if people could be assured that the presence of whomever we allow to operate here doesn't cost the taxpayers additional money. Obviously, there are costs associated with it, but if we could calculate what those costs are and maybe have some agreement that the entity would offset those costs.
You know, they're not sending kids to school, so I think the biggest expense is education. Now, they will require police protection, fire protection, ambulance services, those sort of things. You'll have to try to get a handle on that. It's kind of a difficult thing to do. I don't know if the building is going to burn down.
Well, is any consideration be given to try to calculate some of that? Now, obviously, it depends on who buys the who moves in, but
what type of industry and whatnot that
yeah,
moves in. So
right.
I don't see that there actually be any additional cost to the township because we already have all the utilities already in the park. It's already paved. I mean, I don't see how there would be any. Again, the things that Dr. Buesler just brought up, that we already have a police department, we already have a fire department.
Well, we have one, and their services would be used to some extent, and the roads obviously would be used to some extent. There are other things that would be used. I'm not saying the cost would be great, but if we could assure people that it's not adding to the tax burden, that would be helpful.
But we have to police and protect from fire that
Yes.
land today, whether it's sold or not sold.
I think the marginal cost would be relatively
Right.
low here. But there are some costs. I mean, if they have a fire, it costs for the fire department to come out there. If there is a burglary, the police have to come in there. The point being made is correct. We already have that, so you're not really adding any more to the police force or any more to the fire department. If they're used, there is a cost involved. Maybe you can work something into it to try to offset something.
I don't see that as a singular deterrent. I mean, here we are, it's the county seat, Mays Landing. You have the sheriff's department that is housed there. You have your criminal court system. You have a lot going on in that community. So you brought up a point before, Tony, in terms of there were already owners in the park that haven't begun construction. Do you think of a program like this would incentivize them to start, such as the beverage company, such as the Flex Building, and others like that?
Possibly, sure. I mean, it can't hurt. It can only give them incentive to develop, especially if they found a tenant, excuse me, you know, even if it's a 20,000 square foot tenant, you're building 40,000 square feet, your tax abatement is still very valuable to the tenant and to the building owner. Really, it's to the tenant's advantage if it's an investment.
Mr. Mayor, I would also point out that with respect to the Harrison Beverage project, which was an absolute home run for the township.
Sure.
If they had an incentive to build now, part of the arrangement was that they would build something along the order of $600,000 or $700,000 worth of roadway, drainage, related improvements that would open up an additional 4 lots in the park for development. So it's not just incentivizing them to build their building, but it's doing something more than that for the business park.
Right. If I may, Mr. Mayor.
Please.
Who prepared this?
I did. And
Okay.
I think we prepared that, it's pretty old, and I think we prepared that a few years ago.
Well, it seems, I mean, I really like the programmatic approach, and that might be the project manager in me, but it does seem like that there's a lot of good recommendations in here based on an approach, you know, one of which is to have the strong criteria and process set forth in local ordinances to ensure that abatement applications adhere to appropriate standards to receive approval, also probably to help kind of contain it. Talks about the classification of the areas in need of redevelopment. Applications for abatements should be due before project construction begins. I think that speaks a little bit, Eileen, to your question. So it seems like there's a lot of kind of really good guidelines and, you know, already thought out approach that we could kind of use as our kind of jumping off point rather than a blank page.
That came right off the New Jersey website.
Yeah.
Look,
Seems pretty good.
I have a question. Would this abatement, if we decided to do that, would it only apply to the industrial park, or would we make the parameters of?
Well, we're asking for the industrial park.
Right.
The township committee can make it do whatever they want it to be.
Right.
Well,
What we're here is for the industrial park. But again, you can expand it to whatever you want and make it whatever you want.
well, that was my next question. I wonder what impact providing an abatement to new businesses might have on the people that are already here. Whether that would result in a lot of interest and pressure to do something for their taxes also.
Well, I'm in the industrial park. I have 2 lots in the industrial park. And I don't think it has anything to do with it at all, because how I would look at it is, all right, in year 1, it's not gonna help my taxes, but year 2, 3, 4, and 5, it is gonna help.
Mm-hmm.
So
It's
to
an
give up
infusion.
1 year to get some.
Get a business and some jobs.
Yes, but you're gonna get, if we do it a 5-year pilot, you're gonna get 20%, 40%, 60%. Where right now, in the next 5 years, we're gonna get nothing.
Yeah, I'm actually talking about competing businesses.
This is not in the park?
No, competing businesses in the township that don't have the same tax abatement that we might provide to any new people coming in.
Well, I think you have to look at, this is township ground.
Exactly.
Right.
So we're trying to help, this will actually help the whole community over a period of time if you have more additional commercial taxes that doesn't have kids with schools and all the other things that are required with residential and other development, you know, this is a township project. It's not just the industrial commission.
Keep in mind that the abatement would apply to expansions for specific, you know, any
Good point.
business within the park. So there is some incentive for existing businesses.
And the other differentiation that you were speaking about, all the infrastructure is in that park already.
Correct.
The water, the sewer, the utility lines, the curbing, the roadways, and obviously the advantage that the solicitor spoke about will be the creation of that new area. If the beverage company did, that would open up more lots in there. And obviously, when you see those type of businesses starting to grow in the area, it gets contagious. It does. And, you know, there may even be other things that can come up in that park, i.e. maybe a hotel or something too, for many other usages. But I hear what you're saying, and I think what it does is it stretches your imagination more to the positive side than it does to the negative. I mean, we're dealing in an economy today and in an area that has created a lot of negatives because we hear it all the time. We open up the paper, we read about it. You go to the classified section, you see 9 and 10 pages of sheriff sales. It is depressing, okay? But you have to get beyond that, all right? And I'm not saying that we don't feel it, any one of us or anybody who's in this community. But survival is the mode. And I think this presents for us a great opportunity to look forward, providing that we put all the nuance, all these sections together, which we can do as a group, or you can do it what's in the best interest. But I think it'll benefit the community. That's just my open feeling about it.
I do too, and to answer Rodney's question is, if this is successful, then maybe you do open it up to over there where the Wheaton's property is, or you do open it up on a limited basis to other properties. I think we try it, see where it goes, see what happens. You know, I think the positive totally outweighs the negative, and we can always shut it down.
Yep.
We have, I'm speaking as a solicitor for the Industrial Commission now, which I have the privilege of being by law. It has been discussed at our meetings, and both of these gentlemen and others have testified. And the general census I get from the Industrial Commission is it's a good idea to pursue, but the reason that they are here now is to say to you, if you think it's a good idea, we'll take it to the next step and come back with alternate proposals, whether it's a pilot, whether it's 5 years, 10 years, whatever it is. We can work with our professionals and other folks and come back to the Township Committee and say, here's what we think, and then you all would vote and send it to the Planning Board. But what the Commission needs as a body is your initial reaction saying either yes, no, or we're interested.
Yeah.
And that's the reason we're here.
Let me just make one
Please.
point. You asked whether you thought this would tend to spur development. As a finance person, you know, business takes a look at how much revenue I can get from doing something, subtract all the cost. If the bottom line is to the plus side, you take a look at it. Because of the economy, the amount they can charge for things and the revenue has gone down. And as a result, the bottom line is negative, and that's why they're not doing any development. If you can remove some of the costs from there so that the bottom line now turns positive, it provides much more of an incentive for business to now come in and start to develop. I don't know exactly what the numbers would be and would require study, but whenever you can do something to reduce the cost and turn the bottom line positive, that's going to encourage business to come into town.
And the potential downside is if you do it, you open yourself to other properties, let's say outside of the industrial park, coming and saying, well, do that for me too. And I think that would balance itself out even if you did do it to the activity it would create just by improvement or whatever.
Yeah, if some
come to the business park and build here.
Yeah.
or even if they say, look, you're doing it for them, I want to expand, do it for me, if that's what it takes to have him to expand, I would say do it for him too.
Right, that's what I'm saying. We would lose that tax revenue for non-township owned property people to come to us and say, you know, give us the break too. We give them the break so we don't get the tax income, but people are working, something's getting cleaned up or developed or expanded, which, you know, who knows what else that could bring, so I think it balances out.
Once you get a little activity, these things tend to snowball.
Yep.
Hey, this is going well here, this suddenly, you know, it was a vacant lot, but now there's some activity there, and the lot next door looks a little more attractive.
Yep.
Look, we've witnessed over the last 6 or 7 years, I mean, as a retail center of the county, I mean, when you look at Walmart, Festival Mall, the Mall, Wrangell Barrow Square, Hamilton Commons, and even Benderson's property now that he's considering doing something, it speaks volumes really of the traffic that we have coming through here. I think in the last police study report, the chief put in there that our daily population, which is normally 26,500, doubles because of the amount of not only traffic, but the amount of people who work in this area come through here. So that alone generates a lot for this community. We don't seem to see, and I'm not bragging, and nor am I complaining, a lot of vacant stores in our areas. And of course, people are used to coming here. We witnessed the downturn of the Shore Mall, which I never thought would go that way, and it's just a tragedy because you don't want to see that. It sends out another message. The incentives that we have to offer as a town is one, as a committee, we've been able to financially put this community in good shape. The bond ratings are here. The networks that we work with are secure. We've got good services. So I think, you know, from the point of view of if I were you and I were trying to market the property, you say, I don't understand, other than the fact that there's no abasement, and no abatement. We've got everything going. We've got reasonably priced property. You're in a great area. It's convenient. There's access roadways, the Black Horse Pike, the White Horse Pike, the expressway, Wrangell Barrow Road as it crossed through. I mean, the network is there. So if this is the missing ingredient, we'll only find out by doing. And as you said, you could turn it on or you could turn it off.
Well, that's a good point, Roger. And let me point this out. You have a very unique situation in that you have an industrial business park that was created some time ago and has been very successful. But you have an economy that's stagnant. So you have two categories of businesses. You have those which have already acquired and have approval, and then you have the Industrial Commission trying to market land owned by the township. The idea is to incentivize both of those. And also, for folks that are in the industrial park, should they expand, that would be a third category. And because the parameters of the park are geographically created by law, and you have an industrial commission, that justifies doing it just for that region. Mm-hmm. Whether or not you expand it to someone else, whole other issue, mm-hmm. and you look at that independently when it comes up.
Right.
What can be done ranges from a pilot, where you collect municipal taxes, or a graduated abatement, or something as far as what Philadelphia has done. In the city of Newark, it was a wonderful thing. Where people would go in and turn these old brownstones into beautiful homes because they got an abatement. So the range of what can be done, it goes from 0 to 100, and it all depends on what you ultimately vote on. Mm-hmm. And I think what we as an industrial commission and our agents are looking to do is to say to you, if you think it's a good idea, we'll take the ball and run with it and come back with some proposals. And that would outline from 0 to 100. But ultimately, whoever sits up there is going to have control.
Right. I'd just like to say, I like to think that I like to think outside the box, and I'm reasonably progressive, and I certainly want to pursue every possible idea that we have that might bring the business. I don't know, though, that I have that we have all the facts relating to this. First of all, I don't know what other opportunities there may be. There were several programs mentioned here. Whether any of these apply to this or not, I don't know. I don't know what other opportunities there may be. I don't know what impact that may have on potentially competing businesses in the area that already exist and that don't have the same opportunity. I don't know what the actual cost would be to the township residents. So those are things that I would, like to see some answers to. But I think the idea, whatever ideas we have should be pursued, along with anything else that may be relevant to this. Obviously, this community the whole area is hurting. The residents are in very trying situations regarding tax, and taxes are probably, they may have to increase because of the decreases in property value and so on and so forth. So, yeah, I'm in favor of considering every possible alternative, and I guess we have to make a decision. But appreciate your efforts in identifying this.
What about go ahead.
If I may, Rodney, I understand your question with regard to, potential cost to township residents and understanding what other options may be for us. I think they're both, good questions. I'm just not following the impacts to competitors. So can you give an example?
All right, to give an example, the Revel, for example, in order to get the new buyers to buy it, we gave them a tax abatement. We also even didn't require that they pay their
Atlantic City. When
Atlantic
you say we.
City,
Okay,
yes,
okay.
yes. I'm sorry. Well, I guess the city, yes. The other competing casinos objected to that. They didn't appreciate that, and you could have and you can understand why.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just. That's just something that we haven't had a chance to consider. So, but I think all these things need to be considered.
Mm-hmm.
I still think it's good that this is being pursued,
Right.
and when we have all the facts, and we can make an intelligent decision.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that's pretty much where we are now. Is there a buy-in in terms of starting that process, so that all those questions that you ask can be answered? Good, Bob, I see you.
Yeah, I think that if the five of you, or the majority of the five of you, tell our chairman, and we have 4 other members of the Industrial Commission present, which does not violate the Sunshine Law, by the way, if you tell them that it's like Rodney said, give me some more facts, give me some proposals, show me what has happened in other towns. You've heard from our real estate person that it's tough for him to compete. So we know with respect to the land owned by the township, that's a given. If I can go to Vineland for the same acreage and get a 10-year tax abatement or whatever it happens to be in Vineland, I'm going to Vineland. So that's a real easy one from my perspective. But the proposals that come from the Planning Board and the Industrial Commission would have to start with the pilot issue and work to the abatement issue and come back and answer some of your questions, Rodney.
And by the way, one of those questions would be what our competing townships are doing in the competing area, because you did make that statement. It would be interesting to see what the facts are, what abatements are being offered by nearby communities and what their experience has been.
My presentation really was based on, there's dozens and dozens of incentive programs in the state, dozens, and a lot of them are driven towards lower income areas like Camden, Gloucester, urban enterprise zone areas. So my focus really was, there's not much that we can bring, incentives that we can bring to this park. But one is a tax abatement, one that I think it might be the only option. And my point was that we need to compete. We need to have something to give to companies to want to come here, because there's dozens of programs all throughout New Jersey that offer. They're giving millions and millions and millions of dollars away. One of Gateway Business Park was a park that they just won, and I won't talk about the retailer because it's not public yet. A million square foot industrial deal. Oh, and that's exit 7 off of 295 over their competing park at exit 10, Logistics Center, because of the tax abatement. $1 million.
Is that Swedesboro, Greenwich area?
That's exit 10 is Logan, and exit 7 is Salem County, which is
Okay.
Old Man's Township. So my point is, it's just an example of, on a much larger scale, because that's where all the distribution's going. We're not.
Exactly.
The average size building in this park is, 40,000, 50,000 square feet on the higher side. We're not going to track distribution here because we don't have that 295 access.
Or the turnpike, either, both of them.
Or, that's right. So, but we can offer something, and my main focus was, there's so much incentives, we need to offer something, or we're going to lose every deal.
I'd like to find out what kind of businesses would we be appealing to?
What kind of businesses?
Mm-hmm.
All types, small
All types.
distribution.
Do we have any restrictions and,
Well, however it's zoned, right?
You
yeah?
know, a lot
The
of
planning
companies
board.
that are in, say, Pleasantville,
Mhm.
that don't need the urban enterprise zone, there's a tremendous amount of smaller businesses that probably will be attracted to our park if there's incentive to get a tax abatement. A lot of them, like building trade companies, and that's just one example, need the 3.5% sales tax. There's a lot of smaller companies that don't need them, but they're in Pleasantville. That's who I would be soliciting, those types
And there's
of-
even businesses
Okay.
that have gone under even from the urban enterprise zone. We know that. But I think the important thing tonight is you got our attention. You got our ear. I think it's now for a committee to make that decision in terms of relating to you how they feel about it so that you can either move ahead or not bring it up again, okay? How do we feel?
I think our primary focus, for more than half of my life, I've been, and Gordon's walking away, Carmen and Rocco aren't here, but for more than half my life, I've been a cheerleader and proponent of that industrial park, and I think you know that, Gordon. And that is, I always called it as the jewel of this township owned by the taxpayers. It's our property, and we need the highest and best return for that jewel as we let pieces of it go. So I think our focus needs to be only on the industrial park at this point, because if we're going to help other private landowners to develop their land, that's not going to get our park sold and back onto the tax rolls. The private property's on the tax rolls. This is not. Everything the township has the deed to is untaxed at this point. So marketing that with something that's going to spur some, even if we're not going to get tax dollars at the get-go, we're going to get construction jobs to build buildings, then we're going to have people to go into the jobs that are going to be needed to occupy those buildings. And I think in this economy, as bad as it has been for far too long, and so many people with part-time jobs and no full-time jobs, that's my primary concern.
So that means you're in favor of it?
I am.
Right, Rodney?
Because I've sat through enough
Okay.
meetings and I'm aware of.
We all have, Aileen, and we've heard the presentations, but I wouldn't.
No, I'm at the Industrial Commission meetings.
I have too, okay? Even sat on that board for a number of years and have been a great, as you, a proponent. I love that park. I walk in it frequently. You called it a jewel, I called it a diamond, but same, it's a jewel. But how do we feel, committee, please?
Yeah, I would say it would be a great,
Do we need a formal vote on it?
You don't need a formal vote. What you need to do is to authorize me as a solicitor for the Industrial Commission to work with a body which our chairman shall appoint to come up with some ideas and to allow us to connect with the planning board on an informal way, deal with our tax assessor, and we'll come up with a finite period of time where we can come back to you with a report outlining what we think is probably the best route, but it will require formal action by the Industrial Commission. So what the commission's thought was, if you were going to give it a positive nod tonight, you don't need to take a vote, that we would go back to the commission, put our heads together, and come up with a plan.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if I understand all the comments made by the various members up here, it's my understanding that they favor this, and that the direction should be exactly the way you phrased it tonight, okay, in terms of moving ahead so you can come back to us, okay?
That's all we
Yes.
need.
And I thank you, Gordon. I thank you, Dr. Bresler. I thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate your presentation and you for being here doing it.
We'd also like to get Phil involved. You mentioned tax assessor and all that, but we need to get Phil also.
That was a
Phil
silly.
Sartoria.
Thank you, good
Take
night.
care.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, the next item on the agenda, the adjournment to executive session, we'll do that at the end of the meeting, and I'm not sure whether we'll reconvene and to confirm anything until the meeting, okay? There's no addition or deletion of late agenda items for consideration tonight. Item number 4, early public comment on agenda items, including items listed for public hearing.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, Jody on 5A, I can't read the last name, Bolden, I think. 5A.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Last time I appeared, you requested a letter. So the church has a letter here. And I also have with me proof that the township engineer has come out and satisfactorily surveyed the property as to all the punch list items being completed. And my main question is if we can, just to make things very simple, it was a minor subdivision and it was 2 lots broken into 4. So the major part of the work was done on November 13th, 2012 to be exact, and there's paperwork stating that also. So my question is, because that was really the lion's share of the improvements that had to be made out there on Smith Avenue, is there any way that the committee could consider the 2 years prior to this date as the maintenance?
Question. When were those improvements made? Was there a date on it?
Yes, there is a date.
What's the date?
The date is actually November 13th, 2012 for the cul-de-sac and the end of that Smith Avenue road improvement.
What was the other one?
And the final date, the most recent one, which I think you also all may have received a copy of, was the repainting of the bus stripes and some cleanup debris around the aprons and around the road. And I also brought pictures in case anyone was interested to see, you know, it is a very beautiful road, and it's being taken care of by, there's 2 homeowners on there now. The church doesn't own the property anymore, so that's why we'd really like to wrap the project up, if it would be okay with the committee, and just have the reimbursement of the final bond, which is about 30% of the original bond, to be released back to the church.
Okay, so as I understand it, the question on 5A is to authorize the release of $7,377 being held in escrow as a performance guarantee for the restored Israel of Yahweh minor subdivision site improvements, contingent upon them posting a 2-year maintenance guarantee in the amount of $3,688.50 as recommended by Robert J. Smith, Township Engineer, on October 6, 2014. Now, the reason I asked you is almost all of those items were completed 2 years ago, correct?
Right.
Or very relatively close, within a month or so. Bob, are any of those documents that you have, is it necessary for you to see them?
I have not seen the letter that she's referring to now.
Would you let the solicitor look at it, please?
She called me, and I directed her to Bob Smith, and I know that they've had contact.
Say it again, Bob, I didn't hear you.
I know that Bob Smith is our engineer, and Jody have discussed this,
Okay.
because Jody called me, and I directed her to Bob.
Okay.
Bob Smith,
Go ahead,
my
Leslie.
understanding that the improvements were done sometime prior to November 13th of 2012.
To be honest, I don't know the exact date that the roadway was paved. The site improvements consisted of an extension of the roadway with a cul-de-sac for a turnaround, some driveway aprons, a bus stop pad.
I think I was at the planning board when this was being approved, but
There's no doubt that the road work, which was the lion's share of the project, was completed some time ago. The outstanding issues were some general cleanup, repainting of the bus stop stripes. And that work was completed, and we made a recommendation for the release of the performance guarantee contingent upon posting of a maintenance.
Was that the November 13th, 2012 date? I'm trying to
this-
determine,
Our recommendation for a release was done very recently, within the past couple of
I'm
weeks.
trying to figure out if these improvements are, the lion's share of the improvements are already the 2 years old that would have been covered by the maintenance guarantee.
Plus or minus, yes.
Close if it's a minus.
That's why I
I don't know
asked.
the exact date, but Mrs. Bolgan said that November of 2012.
It's close.
That sounds pretty
I
close.
do have that paperwork if anyone wants to look at it.
Bob, is there anything in it?
I don't think it's relevant. I have to tell you, I've been sitting here for 5 years and then 5 years some time ago, and I don't ever remember a waiver of a maintenance guarantee. It's in the ordinance, it's in the statute, and Bob, correct me if I'm wrong, but the obligation to post the maintenance accrues upon a release of the performance bond, does it not?
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, that's the letter of the law.
So we sit with, go ahead.
Is there any legal reason why we can't authorize the release?
You could, you're
Of
being,
what- I mean,
technically,
of
you're
what's being asked here.
you're being asked to waive that requirement.
Well,
Wait a minute.
there's two separate issues we're talking about here. The first issue is, at the last meeting, there was discussion because the church, the entity, no longer existed. So there wasn't a real entity to release the money to.
Right.
I think one of those issues may have been satisfied based on Mr. Sandman's review of the letter, that there is an entity that can receive
A check.
the funds.
Right.
So the Township Committee can adopt a resolution releasing the performance guarantee contingent upon the posting of a maintenance guarantee, which is essentially half of what's being held,
Right.
15% of the original amount. What Ms. Bolgan is asking for is to waive the posting of the maintenance guarantee and in essence release all the money that's being held by the township. Essentially what her request is that the road was paved approximately 2 years ago, and she wants to have that 2 years act as the maintenance period.
I was understanding.
And what I said to her in the rotunda before the meeting is, as Mr. Sandman, I don't recollect that the Township Committee has ever done that.
Yeah.
I think we had one instance where we had a request for a release or a waiver of a maintenance guarantee for extensive amounts of landscaping that was installed as a buffer, and I don't think we granted that, and the maintenance period ended up starting when the final plans were made and extended 2 years.
So if we were to vote on what is on the agenda as is, then the maintenance period would begin tonight, essentially, for 2 years.
That is correct.
It would begin upon the release of half of the remaining funds.
But we can't release the 7,300 till somebody comes in with 3,600. Is that?
No,
what-
I think
Can
what would
release
happen
half.
is we would release half of the money, because I
And
believe it was
retain half.
cash.
Okay.
So we would release half of the money and hold half of it as the 15% maintenance guarantee.
And
I
think-
understand.
And I think your point at the last meeting was because this money was put up by other individuals?
Yeah, I mean, the church is closed, the property is no longer in ownership, and the church is giving the ownership or asking for the ownership to be given back. I don't know the verbiage, I guess it's like a byway of Hamilton Township. They can take it back on as a road that they approve as the township's.
So the ownership issue has been clarified, though? That was the question we had last meeting. That's
Well,
been
in terms
resolved?
of our ability to give some of the money back to somebody,
Right.
yes.
So can we just take
But-
one thing at a time here? Can we
I
just do
mean,
that?
what Ms. Bolger is asking for is for you to consider the fact
Yeah, let's
that
do it first.
the completion of it has been done for almost 2 years. Although they didn't come in to have the performance bond released until now, because of some legality, that the performance guarantee would have run for the
God
past
bless
2
you.
years anyway.
2 times.
And I'm saying to you, as your solicitor, I've never seen it happen in all the years I've been here. There's a purpose for it. I'm not recommending it, but you have the ability to waive it.
You've never seen it happen, but have we had circumstances like these in the past where the road was completed 2 years ago? And
I can't say that for sure, but I can just repeat what Bob said. We had a prior request similar to this. But that was not a roadway issue.
No, it was a landscaping issue where there were buffer plantings installed, and there was an extended period of time between when it was completed and when the final punch list work was done, and the request was made to waive it because essentially, similar situation, there had been 2 years from substantial completion until the final punch list, and Township Committee denied that waiver and required the applicant to post a maintenance guarantee. I don't think a similar situation has occurred with the roadway.
And was it similar to this amount, or was it a bigger amount or a lesser
No,
amount?
I think it was a much more substantial amount.
Okay. And Bob, what's our risk if we do waive? You said we do have the ability to waive.
You do. The risk is that should the township be required to go out and do something on this property in the next 2 years, it would be at the taxpayer's expense, as opposed to having this cushion to maintain it.
This $3,000 cushion?
And what about precedent? Would this establish a precedent that we might have difficulty with in the future?
It could be looked at that way, Rodney, but if you were comparing it to something much larger, I suppose there could be a differentiation made. But the committee's vote on a particular application in this regard is not binding on any future similar application. It depends on how similar they are.
Now, if we were to examine this, say we approve it as is tonight, and we're in the 2-year maintenance period,
Right?
and then we were to examine the idea that was just presented that the property come back to the township somehow. So now we're gonna be responsible for it anyway. Would the maintenance guarantee then dissolve and they would get the money back at that point?
If you approve the resolution as written on 5A, the maintenance period would begin today.
Right.
Half of the money would be held by the township, since this is a cash bond. And at the end of 2 years, if during the 2 years some work had to be done on it, that money would be used to pay for it. If no work needed to be done 2 years from today, the money would be released.
But what I'm saying is the lady was asking, I think as a subsequent question, is that they want to revert the property back to us at some point soon.
The property is the street?
I'm not exactly sure, but what I'm hearing is you guys don't want to own it anymore.
We don't own it anymore.
Yeah,
It's-
okay.
I was just trying to bring out.
Okay.
and, however that's done, taking back ownership, or right now, we're technically responsible unless you agree that.
Did we
it could
dedicate this
be
road?
considered that in November 13th, 2012, the trees were cleared, the roadway was put in, all the improvements were done, the aprons were put in, the bus stripes were put in, and since then, they've been repainted, which really just took about an hour, so.
Bob, what are
I don't
the
think we're
items that
talking
this
about-
maintenance
But I'm
covers?
confused.
Well, the maintenance guarantee covers all of the items on the original performance guarantee, the paving of the roadway, the construction of the concrete driveway aprons, and the construction of the bus stop pad. But let's back up. There was a 4-lot subdivision that was approved by the board. I believe 2 of the lots are now developed. There's 2 vacant lots. I don't think there's any discussion about the property reverting to the township. I think the property they're just buildable lots that will be sold and developed in
At
the
some
course
point.
of time. The only thing we're talking about here is it's a township right-of-way, Smith Avenue. There's a turnaround cul-de-sac.
Did you name it?
I beg your pardon? I did not. I did not. It's well named, but I did not name it. And there's a cul-de-sac, which I believe exists as an easement on 1 or 2 of the lots. The maintenance of the roadway will become township responsibility. Well, let me back up. The maintenance of the roadway is township responsibility. Snow plowing, sweeping, whatever has to be done. The maintenance bond deals with latent defects in the construction. If there's a problem with the roadway, develops potholes, any of the concrete pads deteriorate, that's what the maintenance guarantee is for. It's our road, we have to maintain it, sweep it, plow it, what have you. But if in a year from now, or in 2 years from now, when the applicant comes back in and says, okay, the 2 years is up, can I have my money back? We're going to go out and we're going to do an inspection. If there's any damage or deterioration of the roadway, they're going to have to repair that before the township will release those funds that are being held in escrow as a maintenance guarantee.
And $3,600 would handle that?
Well,
That's
the
the
problem
law.
is, we're governed by municipal land use law.
I'm just asking.
15% is the amount of the maintenance guarantee
Right.
that we're permitted to hold. So it may, as long as the roadway holds up, it's not an issue. Is it possible that the roadway could cost far more to repair? Absolutely.
What's your pleasure?
Well, first of all, we're in early public comment,
Oh, yeah.
so you'll need to dismiss Jody and open up your agenda to 5A and
Okay.
proceed.
Okay.
Is there anybody else?
For early public, anybody?
Anyone else for early?
No one else signed up.
Okay. You could sit down. Okay, with that, item 5A, authorize the release of $7,377 being held in escrow as a performance guarantee for the restored Israel of Yahweh minor subdivision site improvements contingent upon them posting a 2-year maintenance guarantee in the amount of $3,688.50 as recommended by Robert Smith, Township Engineer, on October 6,
So if we approve this-
2014.
If we approve this, Roger, we're going to retain the 3,600 and release 3,600.
Correct.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Have a motion and a second. Are there any questions or comments to the motion? Can we have a roll call, Mrs., not Mrs. Anderson,
Mrs.
Marie.
Martinez.
Rita's fine.
Martina?
Mrs. Dix?
Yes.
Ms. Gatto?
I say yes. My intent would be to try to release the whole thing, but it sounds like we don't really have any legs to stand on there, so I would say yes to releasing what's on the agenda.
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mayor Silva?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Okay.
Okay.
So-
Next item on the agenda is 5B, a request by the Atlantic County Public Works Department read a transfer of 2 FEMA trailers. We've got pictures of those here in this. Is it acknowledged that they no longer have any use or need, or?
Yes. Yes,
How
we
do
don't,
we get them?
through a FEMA, I think it was a FEMA grant.
They were giving them out to
Mr.
everybody.
Brandenburg is here tonight for specific questions, but I think we got it through a FEMA grant. And we have a couple of them, we haven't used them in, I don't know how many years.
Probably 7 years ago, we took possession of the trailer, some FEMA, that after left over from Katrina, and there were no cost to the township. And apparently we have one sitting, the rest of the squad building are here, we have one in the firehouse, they want them off the property.
What firehouse?
Wait.
Okay, I couldn't hear you.
So the county will pick them up and take them?
Yes,
Okay. Once this information is,
you approve it tonight, yes.
okay.
Okay, I'm make the motion to approve the request by the Atlanta County Public Works Department to take the transfer of 2 FEMA trailers.
I'll second it.
Second.
There's a second. Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Opposed?
Hold on. Mike, do these things have titles?
Yes, they do, the tenants of the township.
You need a roll call.
Okay, roll call, Rita.
Mrs. Dix?
Yes.
Ms. Gatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mayor Silva?
Yes.
All ayes and carried.
Okay, item 5C, proposal from Remington and Vernick for engineering services for Tanglewood Drive Twin Culvert Replacement.
Roger, could we table this and let's Quality of Life talk about this at tomorrow's meeting?
What's the problem?
I think that $39,000 is a tremendous amount of money for what is over there, and I just don't think we need to start this at this point.
Mike, do you want to give just some background on this for the public's benefit?
Well, that's why I asked to table it.
Well, you didn't make a motion, so we have open discussion if it's not a motion.
We were notified of a hole in the road. When we went out, Brett and them opened up the road and found that the pipe underneath is deteriorating. And we asked Bob for a proposal to replace the pipes. I think what we're planning on doing is replacing them in kind because the permitting process is a little simpler, but I too questioned the amount of this. But Bob assured me that it's because of and I'll let you elaborate why it's so high, but it was surveying and shooting elevations and.
They have to do a full wetlands delineation. We have to survey the stream cross-section, 500 feet upstream, 500 feet downstream, do a hydrologic analysis of the flow through the culvert, and then design a culvert that is appropriate for the roadway section. The permitting involved, we're required to get, I believe it's a general permit for wetlands from the Pinelands. We're required to get a flood hazard area permit. That's really where the cost is, all the permitting, because the construction cost is not going to be that significant, dependent upon the method that the culvert is. The DEP will govern what type of culvert will go in there.
My issue is just exactly ties to what you said. This proposal is for almost $40,000. It says the cost of the permits is not included.
The permit fees.
That to me is the permits.
Well, no, there's an application fee, a permit fee that has to be paid to the DEP.
All of it is on the taxpayers. $40,000 plus all of the fees, and I've seen fees for other permits that have come up on bill lists over the years, and that's why I think I'd rather let's talk about what we really have to do. I saw the nightmare of Skip Morgan Drive, and at the end of the day, it was, and we did it anyway, but the litigation was over the responsibility to do it.
Because it sat there with nothing happening, and 7 years ago, we decided it was in the best interest to open up that road for many reasons, because it gave the people up there more access out, especially in the event of emergency, and I think ultimately the work that was performed up there was very well done, and actually there's been no major complaints about anything up there. I think the biggest issue they had at the time was a little bit of a problem with the weir in the lake there, okay? And
all right, but my point here is we're talking about, so everybody understands, go down the street to the Dry Run Creek. We're talking about the, but everybody else in the audience doesn't know that this is. Were you there? Roger, why do you keep interrupting me?
Well, only because you're bringing up something that they've been trying to get repaired for a while.
I asked that this be tabled so that we could talk about it tomorrow's quality of life meeting. I did ask that politely at the outset, and instead it's going into this direction. It seems like a tremendous amount of money for something that I originally thought we were talking about slip lining, putting another pipe inside the existing pipes, which would not be that big of a deal. But now we're talking 500 feet down, coming down Dry Run Creek, 500 feet that way, and everybody can look at Tanglewood Drive where these two pipes are, and the amount of money involved is just astronomical. It doesn't make sense to me, and that's why I would prefer that, Rodney, you're the liaison to quality of life. Surely you must have some thoughts on this. That's why it would be better if we discussed it tomorrow.
My initial reaction to the cost was also a bit of a surprise, but I did take a look at what was involved, and there is quite a bit involved. And a good part of this, at least in my impression, is required by law. So that's why I think we can discuss it tomorrow if you think that would help. But I do want to assure that the job is done. I don't want this thing hanging around. It needs to be done. It needs to be completed properly.
But we can't be doing that work in the middle of the work that's going to go on Park Road with the curbing and the paving that's expected to be done in 2015. This is going to be the way in and way out. We can't stop this. We can't do this work until the other work is done. That's why there's no rush to do this.
I don't know that we've talked about stopping anything. This is part of our infrastructure. It failed and it needs to be fixed, and I'd like to fix it as soon as possible. Now, if the purpose of the meeting in your mind is to delay things, I'm not sure I would agree with that.
No, I would like to have it understood why it's $39,000. It just seems like an astronomical amount of money.
Well, the engineer's here in front of the public. Would you please?
It's really the extensive surveying and permitting that's involved. The problem is you can't change the diameter of the culverts because it impacts both upstream and downstream properties. So that's why we have to do the H&H study in order to determine what the flow through the culverts is upstream and downstream. With regard to the permit fees, you had brought that up. Unfortunately, we have no control over what the permit fees are. They're determined by the DEP, and that's why we exclude them from the proposal. When the DEP terms indicates to us what the permit fees are, the township will have to cut the check. Cut the check short.
What kind of fees are we talking about? What approximately? What do you have a feel for the fees?
No, I do not, Mr. Kishard. They have not been estimated.
What timeline are we looking at if we gave approvals today? Is it going to happen several months from now with all these approvals and?
I believe that what we indicated in our proposal is within 90 days of authorization, we'll have permit plans submitted to the various agencies.
Then
And that's the application.
That's just the application. Then they'll
That's
determine if
3
it's
months.
complete, they'll do a review, we'll address any of the comments, and then hopefully we'll get our approvals, in a relatively short period of time after that.
And once we receive approvals, are we bound to do work?
Certainly not, but then
We wasted the permit
what
money.
we would do is we would prepare construction documents and go out to public bid to replace the culverts. The concern is that I think the culverts were inspected and the bottoms are starting to deteriorate as well as the top, so we have no idea, when the next issue or sinkhole could possibly develop. And then the problem is now you've cut off one of your
Emergency.
access points. Right, and then it becomes an emergency and the expense could far, exceed what it would be if we went through the normal process and publicly bid it. And you're still, regardless of whether or not it's done as an emergency, you're still required to obtain all the permits after the fact.
Yeah.
So regardless, we're still obligated to obtain the permits, whether it's an emergency or not.
The reason I asked the question, Eileen, was not to say, oh, let's go through, do all the work and then not actually perform the work. I was asking to try to resolve the question you had with regard to timing of things. So if we got permits and we got the A-OK, let's do this, do we have the ability to time the actual work based on other things that are going on?
Certainly, the permits are valid for a certain period of time, and we would never start construction because you're probably going to have to close that roadway.
Right.
So we would not close that roadway if there wasn't an alternate.
Outlet, right.
Yeah, an alternate access. So
Put a ferry on the lake.
No, Park Road would be inundated with traffic.
the other thing to determine or to take into considerations is I don't know, and the township has to determine that, is when Park Road will
Ultimately
done.
get paid.
Right. Based on the capital, it may not be 2015. That's really a question for Mr. Jacobs. And I think what we want to do is you want to get the permits and everything in place so that when we have the funding and the schedule is appropriate, we go in and we do that work and get it done.
I agree with that approach.
Yeah, how long ago was these culverts put in? Was it 10, 15, 20 years ago? Or
Longer.
Probably been
30.
well in excess of that because when I started in '99, they were done well before that. So that's 15 years ago. Right there.
So
Park Road
it's
was-
time, it's deteriorated, let's get it
The
fixed.
problem is they're corrugated metal, and they have somewhat of a limited shelf life. So what we would do is we would put either reinforced concrete pipes or a concrete box culvert, something that you're going to get a lot more longevity out of.
Park Road was paved around 1997 when Ron Kurtz built the houses on Tanglewood and came through with the water main, and then the road was paved. But I believe the road was paved after 97, meaning after the summer of 97, but the roadway was open. I really don't know on the culverts, and I've been on Park Road since 79. I don't know when
Yeah,
it
it
came
was-
through. I don't know when the road was
Really
open all the way
needs it.
through to 13th.
Bob, is it typical in a proposal such as this that you would be able to assign, kind of break down the cost by the
Categories.
numbered items for future to help
Yeah,
resolve questions like this?
we can certainly do that.
Okay.
Okay.
And
Well,
he put fixed
The,
fee in here
the other
again.
thing is, aside from this, when we had the derecho, 13 was the throughway for everything. So that really, if we had another incident and simultaneously or whatever, where would we redirect the traffic? That's my concern.
This is part of our infrastructure, and I would not like to see it deteriorate or wait until it's an emergency. I think we need to address it as soon as we can, and I'm certainly in favor of that.
Well, what's your favor?
Barring a motion to table, I will go ahead and make the motion to accept the proposal.
Deleting the word fixed fee, page 3.
I don't know that,
Wh-
Mike, do we need to do that?
It's
Okay.
our understanding there's not supposed to be any fixed fee contracts.
It's not to exceed 39, so.
Okay, so I moved the proposal with the word changed
Not to exceed.
Not to exceed, remove fixed fee, not to exceed 39,600.
Have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
A motion is second. Any other questions or comments? Rita?
Mrs. Dix?
No. I think the cost is too high.
Ms. Gatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mayor Silva?
Yes.
4-1, motion carries.
Thank you. Item number 6, public hearing adoption of ordinances. A, 1777-2014, an ordinance amending Chapter 301, Article 1 of the Township Code to create a no parking zone on portions of 13th Street in the Township of Hamilton, County of Atlantic. This is a public hearing. Does anyone in the public wish to speak on this?
Move to close the public portion?
Second.
Motion is second. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like the record to reflect that none of the residents from 13th Street appeared to talk about it in public hearing, and with that, make a motion to adopt.
I'll second the motion to adopt.
The motion is second.
We're not going to talk about it?
We can talk about it during discussion.
The motion. Yep.
We have a motion and a second, now we discuss.
We had, I think, one in-committee meeting on this maybe a year and a half or more ago, and I spoke then opposing a 100% parking ban on 13th Street from Route 50 to Adams Avenue, which is the turn to the left down the street. I think that there's a different way to do this, and the different way would be to have it no parking during certain hours, make it a snow route, but to totally ban parking when we have removed all parking from the front of the building, except for one handicap parking spot, forcing anybody who's handicapped to park on the side of the building, have to navigate all the way around the building. Navigate could be by foot, by walker, by wheelchair, by motorized chair, to get to the front of the building to come in. And people who have breathing issues, it's a very long distance to walk, and I just think it's absolutely the wrong thing for us to do. And I'm going to be voting no on this.
Well, you voted no on the other one, too, to introduce it, so that makes 2. Any other
Just
questions?
inconsistent.
I just think it's important that we note that we're pursuing this as part of our complete project, where we put in the new parking lot across the street, which is well-lit, paved, safe. It does have all the markings, and it also takes people backing out from a haphazard spot onto the road, where somebody else who's turning in from Route 50 may not see that backing out happening. It's all in the name of safety, and I think it's absolutely the right next step. And again, there was nobody here to comment on the ordinance in favor or against it, so I'm okay with.
I have a
What we're
question. The handicap locations, aren't they all around the front of the building?
No, there's only one spot right by the front door for, I think it's actually a van spot.
I believe so.
The rest of them are around the corner towards the other parking lot. They're the front row now.
Okay.
Where
They're the
you usually
closest-
park?
Where I used to park.
Yeah, they're the close, I think the way the term is,
Closest
the
accessible
closest
spaces.
accessible spaces where you have to put your handicap parking. And that meets the requirement, that's my
It
understanding.
does.
Oh, okay, so.
Okay. Any other comments? Rita?
Right.
Mrs. Dix?
No.
Ms. Gatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gishard?
Yes, and I understand that if it does become a problem to someone, it can be revisited later. But right now, I see no reason not to do that, so yes.
Good point.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mayor Silva?
Yes.
4-1.
Thank you.
Roger, I just have one other question real quick. For some reason, this ordinance is marked that it's going to be recorded in the county clerk. I've never seen an ordinance recorded in the county clerk before. I don't know why we would be starting now. Bob, it's in section 2. It's very costly to record things now in the county clerk. Could be a couple $100.
Truthfully, I don't know. I take it
I took this from a standard ordinance of this similar type, and I don't know what it costs to record.
Oh, I know what it costs, because I'm in the county clerk's office all the time looking at things.
If you would like, I will look at this, and if you would allow me to administratively redact it, if it's legally possible, I can do so.
What's gonna cost more, your time to review it or to just record it?
If I made a mistake, you're not paying for it.
All right, we'll take that deal.
Thank you, that's a good deal.
Can't beat that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, consent agenda.
I move consent agenda 7A through D.
I'll second.
Motion is second. Are there any questions or comments?
I'd like to talk about C.
You want to pull C out?
I change my motion to everything except C.
And I'll second that revised motion.
Motion is second. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Go ahead, Aileen.
Well,
Let me read it. C.
it's very long.
Well, I
my-
can read
my-
long statements. Resolution constituting a lien on certain properties for property maintenance, abatement charges pursuant to Chapter 238, Property Maintenance Code of the Township of Hamilton, a total of $6,080 for 14 properties.
My questions are kind of short. There's a house on Park Road, and there is a maintenance company that comes and takes care of the grass every, maybe once a month.
Is it one of these properties?
Yes, it is. It's Block 723, which is my block, Lot 30, $532. I don't know why, when there's a sign on the door and there's a maintenance company and the grass is being cut, why would we go in on top of it?
Not doing their job, and it's.
Well, the only response I can offer, obviously, I didn't do the inspection, is that the grass must have exceeded our ordinance. And somebody must have complained about it. I mean, at some point, it must have exceeded the 10
I've seen them there
inches.
cutting it. The guy comes with one of those stand-up things that you ride around on, but you stand up, not a John Deere tractor type, and they cut it. So that's just one example.
I can't disagree with you because I didn't do the inspections, but I'm relying on our inspectors that.
The fact that it's periodically cut doesn't mean that at some time it didn't exceed the standards. I've had other instances where that's happened.
All right.
Okay,
I was going to say which one was.
item C.
I make the motion.
I'll second it. Motion is second. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
That's a lien.
It's
You want
now
to get a
lien.
vote? Roll call, Rita.
Mrs. Dix?
Yes.
Ms. Gatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Judy?
Called your name.
Yes.
Yes.
She said yes.
Mayor Silva?
Yes.
All ayes and adopted.
Thank you. 8, approvals. Approval of minutes, October 6th. Can I take them together, Bob, or separate? October 6th, regular session minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Move the executive session.
Second.
Second. Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. B, payroll and bills, bill list totaling $1,824,658.33.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Questions or comments? Rita?
Aye. Oh, sorry.
Mrs. Dix?
Yes.
Ms. Gatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mayor Silva?
Yes.
All ayes and adopted.
9, personnel, approve level increase for Donald Lysinger from truck driver dash laborer 2, $31,288.46, to truck driver laborer 3 at $34,102.37, effective October 21st, 2014, as permitted by Schedule A of the Teamsters Collective Bargaining Agreement.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Motion is second. Any questions or comments? Rita?
Mrs. Dix?
Yes.
Ms. Gatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mayor Silva?
Yes.
All ayes and adopted.
B, change Christy Wilson, part-time violations clerk, employment status from temporary part-time to regular part-time, effective October the 21st, 2014.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Motion is second. Questions or comments? Rita?
Mrs. Dix?
Yes.
Ms. Gatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mayor Silva?
Yes.
All ayes and adopted.
Okay, reports. Mr. Administrator,
Nothing to add.
thank you.
Nothing.
Thank you.
Mayor, nothing to add to my written report.
Thank you.
Bob, can I ask you, Sandman, can I ask a question? There was an issue recently about small cities, and people are refinancing and not paying off small cities. In the one case, we voted to allow it. One case, it was handled administratively, which I raised that question to you. And now I'm seeing on here, on page 2 of Mrs. Anderson's report, that we're receiving notices of foreclosures on properties, and they have small cities mortgages on them, which in my knowledge of title insurance, et cetera, it means we're going to lose the value of the small city's money at the sheriff's sale, because the first mortgage holder will take the property back and we will be shut out the door. Can we look at this with the eye of maybe, and I know Cindy's sitting there, she has the records on small cities' outstanding mortgages, that maybe we need to have a policy that we're not going to allow any more refinancing without paying off small cities. Our small cities recapture money that was being used to help indigent, for lack of a better word, indigent taxpayers who might need a new roof or a new well. That recaptured money was going out to these people to help them in their time of need, and it would be recaptured at their sale. But that money was reclassified into the handicap improvements for this building. There is no money for indigent, and now we're losing to foreclosure what should go back, and we would be replenishing that piggy bank. And I think you followed exactly what I said. We should look at how many small cities liens we have out there right now, what kind of money we're talking about, and maybe come with a policy at a future meeting, and not too far away from now, a policy where we're not going to allow any more refinancing without paying off.
Well, certainly that can be done, and it probably would be a positive thing. It's a question of subordination and priorities of the mortgages.
Exactly.
So, you know, truthfully, I've never been asked to look at one of them, so I don't know what it looks like. And I presume that we, at some point, subordinate to a primary lender, which puts us second in control.
Exactly.
Right. What you're suggesting can be done, yeah.
Could we, maybe the easiest way to start would be to have the finance office give us a list in like 1, 2, 3 order, just if maybe there's five small cities mortgages out there, maybe there's 10. I don't imagine there's a whole lot.
I think the easiest way to start is for Cindy and I to sit down and talk and see what it looks like in terms of bulk.
All right. But I would like to see something happen, because I really was not happy when I discovered, by sending a senior in to get some help with some roof issues, that we no longer had recapture money available at that point because it was reclassified.
I will do so.
Thank you.
Why don't you continue, Eileen, since you started?
What do you mean?
Committee
reports.
You know, I don't think I have anything else tonight. I think it's known that I took a fall at Underhill on Saturday, and I really don't feel well, so I'll take a pass.
That was not known. You said it's
It was not known?
It's not known.
I didn't know.
No.
Well, the bleacher was broken, and I stepped on it and fell on a little girl, and probably that caused me not to have a broken anything. Just skeletal. Thank you.
Rodney?
I really don't have anything except to mention that Stockton is having a veterans job fair. I mean, we may not have any veterans out here, but maybe you could let any veterans you know about it. It looks like it's going to be a good event. There are a number of vendors out here. What is it? It looks like over 50. And we don't have these events too often, so it should be taken advantage of. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Judy?
Yes, I do have something, that I think is of great concern. And I learned this just last Friday. The Mizpah Inland Services building is closed. They are financially, out of monies. And their building could be in jeopardy of having pipes breaking and so on and so forth. And I was made aware that we had sold that to the MISBA Inland Services for $1 several years ago. And, you know, I was just wondering how that would play out, what was our contract and so on and so forth for the MISBA and Inland Services. I know that they said that they were unable to get the state funding that they had before.
And no United Way money either going in there? No? Okay.
What did you say?
No more United Way money? They were on my donor list when I was at the gas company.
It sounded pretty dire.
Okay.
Kim Melton was a director, or is a director, and is the person to reach out to. I was hoping to sponsor some sort of fundraiser so they could at least keep the pipes from breaking. But that was revealed to us, you know, on Friday, and we had no idea that they were in such dire straits. So that's one service of the community that would be kind of sorely missed. So that's it. You have.
Well, I was just talking to Bob while you were telling us that I think I should get him a copy of the deed to find out if there's a reverter clause.
Exactly.
Because it might end up reverting back if we have to exercise it. So I just made a note to get a copy of the deed to Bob.
Okay.
Are they still occupying the building?
No.
There's nobody in there?
No.
Well, up until very recently.
Yeah,
they were.
well, they were up
Better,
until.
because if that building, if it reverts back, then we're going to have to winterize the piping and just
Frozen pipes.
secure it.
Yeah, they closed the doors. I think Ethel Gaylord said the last food
There were
bank.
2 vehicles that went with it. There was a bus and
The
a van.
The van was parked in front of the building when I went through there
Just-
about a week or so
We
ago.
had just recently had redone the whole bus and everything. Okay.
Okay, so a little bit of.
He
you
should
know.
have the deed in the,
That's right.
and we should have a copy of the deed from when we originally turned it over to them. And I pointed at Rita because it should be in Joan's office, but between the two, the whole
Right.
deed should be in this
Go
building.
ahead, Amy.
All right, just wanted to point out, we have this invitation from the Hamilton Historic Society on Thursday of this week from 1 to 9. They're having an exhibit of political signs, campaign literature, and sample ballots for Township Committee elections from years past at the Little Red Schoolhouse. Sounds like a pretty apropos and cool event to be happening just a couple weeks before the election here, so check that out.
And it's from 1 to 9, I think, right? So
Yep.
it's-
Yeah, that's what I said, 1 to 9.
You did say that? Okay.
Yep. That's the Little Red Schoolhouse on Mill Street, which is the Historic Society Museum, for people who don't know. And next week, just a reminder, the long-awaited 60th Annual Halloween Parade will be occurring, held by the Rotary Club, and I've been a really proud member of that parade committee this year. We have a ton of floats coming, a ton of community partners getting involved. We have a great partnership with Oakcrest High School going on. They are in the midst of doing a kind of a banner, a walking banner decoration and theme contest at the school, which they'll be judging, and numerous groups and activities will be walking with their banner and with their themes in the parade. So it's been really great. We had the first ever poster contest among the schools this year, and we had a really tremendous and pretty awesome response from all the different grade levels across all the different schools. So it's been a really nice community event put on by the Rotary Club. And our main attraction, hosted by Brownie Squared, is our wedding that will be performed on a float. So as we start coming down Main Street, Chris Groom from Brownie Squared will be cooking their reception dinner, and they will be eating it until we get to about Brownie Squared, where I will perform the ceremony very quickly, and then we'll continue to move on down. When we get to War Memorial Park, there may be some cake cutting or smashing, there may be some flower tossing, a lot of exciting things happening for this really great young couple from our area. So come out, check out the wedding. You can hashtag their pictures and all that kind of stuff as it goes by. And like I said, just lots of really awesome floats this year. And of course, our fire trucks and everything like that. So should be great. And then, of course, trick or treat the 31st from 6 to 8 on that Friday. And then don't forget to vote on November 4th. That's it.
Okay, we had the occasion last week to do the ribbon cutting of a new business that opened up in the CVS shopping area there. It's called Show Enough Fish. It was a great opening. There were a lot of people in attendance, and it's nice to welcome a new business to town always. It's very positive when that happens. The other thing happening this Saturday, October the 25th at noontime, it's a grand opening and a celebration of a new ministry, the Anglican Church of Transformation. They're the new church that bought St. Vincent's Church, and they'll be having their celebration this Saturday.
Did they actually buy it, as opposed to leasing it?
Noontime.
Yeah, they
bought it.
Did you say that name of that church again?
Anglican.
The Anglican Church of Transformation.
Yeah.
Well, if you don't have it, they had stopped me on the street and gave it to me, so I have it. The other good thing, first of all, I want to congratulate and praise the Public Works Department under Brett and all the individuals who secured the American Legion building with the tarp and all the first stripping up there in terms of trying to protect it from the weather any further. You know, you talk about the inland
Humans.
building, what we're looking at is, a lot of these organizations wanted to take on the responsibility of these buildings, like the American Legion. Went for $1, they were going to put a new roof on it. Never happened. We have the building back now. Inland, they wanted it and take it over for $1. They got the van, they got the bus, they got the building. It looks like now, depending on what the deed says, if we get it back, it's just another maintenance item in terms of an expense that the township is at its the end of its budget year coming, where there's a lot of things out there that aren't happening, and I think we've got to take a good hard look as we move forward when people come in and request this, how they're going to be able to handle it going forward when we make these decisions. We make them in the best interest of those organizations. They're all well meant. But again, we're ultimately the ones that will, and you as taxpayers too, will be holding the so-called bag on this one.
Roger, you just triggered on that topic of MISPA. Those vans that were transferred were CBDG money, and if they're no longer in use for that purpose, I believe the same path that our Chevy Impalas and our kitchen equipment went, where it has to go to auction, has to be retrieved to return that money to ACIA.
Well, you let the attorney take a look at that deed, okay, and everything. The other thing, it's good, the Victoria Crossing this past Saturday hosted their Firewires program, as did the week before Horizons Woods Landing did theirs. Obviously, it's a great aid to help the fire departments in keeping the surrounding areas where there's a lot of woods around it to keep the burnable fuel from combusting and causing more problems. The other thing, I was able, during the week, I was invited to sit on a panel at an organization called Hope All Day. They now occupy one of the clubhouse buildings of the defunct, not the defunct, the golf course that closed down over at Blue Herring Pines on the other side. And it's quite an organization, and it's quite a program that they put on, and it's amazing what can happen when you get this number of volunteers working for a worthwhile effort. The other thing is that a couple of meetings ago, a woman stood up in the audience and talked about the problems with a property on Pennington Avenue. Melissa Davenport.
Yes.
Numerous people from the township have been out there to look at it. I know the administrator had made many attempts to contact the owner and get him in for a meeting. And Michael, it's been to no avail, correct?
Correct.
I'd like to ask the solicitor, I mean, that property's been vacant for a long time. And forget about the number of newspapers that have been piling up on the porch, and the fact that it's boarded up, and the fact that it's become a haven for all types of environmental creatures who look to get in from the weather. What can we do at this point?
I'll report back to you.
Would you please?
Yeah.
And let us know what direction we can take?
I'll take a look at it, I'll talk to Brett, and I'll report back.
I appreciate that. It's long overdue, okay? And I thank you. And with that, I'll open up the session to the public. Anyone in the public wish to speak? Please.
Good evening, Harry Rogers, 1069 Morningside Drive. On discussion item C, 5C, having to do with Tanglewood Drive. I've seen the washouts there. I've personally reported those a couple times to your office. They're recurring, they're significant. Now you're telling us that the culvert itself is failing? Is that correct?
That's correct. It was inspected by Public Works.
Okay, now, if that collapses and somebody falls into it, Township's going to get sued, right?
Presumably.
Yeah, I think so. And it cuts off access to the homes and businesses back there. It seems kind of foolish to delay this even a moment, but I think you're still missing another step. If we have a section of the roadway that is suspect, shouldn't a weight limit be established? Because, I mean, that whole community there is served by two tenuous crossings. You got the White Bridge, and I have no idea what the capacity of the White Bridge is. It's not posted. There's never been a limitation there. But now we're looking at the culvert there on Tanglewood Drive, and you send a great big tractor trailer over that and punches a wheel through the pavement or something like that. We could have injuries, and then we lose the road altogether. I would suggest that the committee direct the engineer to determine whether or not a weight limit needs to be put on that section of road until this can be repaired, until it can be repaired.
Yes, it's good. It's a good thing.
Well, and
I think
to delay this even for at all, period, I think is foolhardy and
Probably to put the weight limit on it, but yeah.
Puts the
You don't-
township,
You don't
citizens
need
and the
to
township
have
itself
them
at
study it,
risk.
do you?
Small item,
To adopt it.
Mr. Jacobs
Apologize.
and Mr. Smith, great job on the parking lot. It looks really great. It's coming along very well. I know it's not finished, but it needs trash cans.
Yes.
It really needs trash cans.
She's taking care of it.
They're on their way.
Thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs and I were out there running the equipment ourselves.
If I might, I'd just like to add to Mr. Rogers' comment about the bridges, because I think we have a similar situation with the bridges on Old Lake Harbor Road. The bridge there was recently refurbished, I guess you can call it. And as I was riding over it, I asked what the weight limitations were on the bridge, and the gentleman there couldn't tell me. I don't think anything was posted.
Yeah,
It's posted now?
It's HML 35.
No, they're
isn't it?
they're posted way up near 50.
Did you get off?
Okay.
and walk
Actually,
your
two
bike
different
across?
postings.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
There's actually two different postings. I think one was a municipal posting, just as local deliveries limits, but then there's a bridge
Okay.
posting that shows a different size tractor trailer, because
The county
I just
bridges
happened
do
to see it,
post their
'cause I go
limits
home.
on them.
All right.
They worked on the Old Lake Harbor Road Bridge?
I think
I
they
was
put new
just on that
salt-treated-
bridge on Saturday.
Looks like new pressure
This
treated.
was a couple of weeks ago.
top on
then.
it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think they put new planking down.
They were
Right.
supposed to do that a long time ago, but there were other road issues that caused them to delay, or maybe it was the derecho taking their attention to other places. But Harry Rogers has just triggered a very interesting question. The Park Road Bridge is under the jurisdiction of Atlantic County. That's a box bridge.
All of our bridges, I believe, are under the jurisdiction of Atlantic County.
And so where does that leave Tanglewood? Why is that not under their jurisdiction?
It's not a bridge.
Not a
is it?
bridge.
That's just a culvert. I don't believe it's designated as actually a bridge.
So how could we put a weight limit on it if the county would put the weight limits on the county's jurisdiction? How can we put a weight limit on a culvert?
I think the point is to mitigate risk
I
in that
understand that, but
area.
I'm asking
So
how we have the authority to do it.
whatever we would need to do to mitigate
our
the
road.
risk.
Tanglewood's a municipal road, is it not?
Correct.
It is.
It's our road.
So you have authority to do, it would be a temporary weight measure, what it would be,
So,
20 pounds.
in fact,
pending repair.
You probably could even lighten the load too, whatever it is. We don't even know, so.
What we might want to do also is we might want to ask the county to evaluate the Park Road Bridge for a weight limit, because the problem is we could create a situation where vehicles of certain sizes can't even get into that area.
Yeah.
Correct.
So we just want to be careful what we do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Could I just add one thing? When they were doing the renovations of Lenape Park, day after day after day, 16-ton trucks came totally filled with concrete. I don't know but they did cause a crack in our parking lot. And they settled with me as far as that was concerned. But I'm just saying that,
What damage did they do
yeah,
here?
we have to look at things of maybe that nature too. I don't know what weight they were actually. I'm sure, you know.
Very good point, because they were coming in that way where this hole developed. They were coming in loaded, dumping here at the park, then going out empty, and the hole was on the inbound side of the street. That's an interesting point, Judy. Maybe that was the cause of that whole thing to begin with.
No, the problem
No, it wasn't.
existed.
It was-
Sides of the streets at different times.
What?
There were holes on both sides of the culvert at different times.
Yeah, I mean, whatever, you know. I mean, something was weak to begin with, but it could have caused a little bit of stress, because I don't know.
Anyone else in the public?
Move to close the public portion.
Second.
Motion is second. Any questions or comments?
All those.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Rita, would you read about make the motion?
Yes, are we coming back out?
Michael?
I
Leave
thought
for
Bob-
Bob, not for mine.
Okay.
So yes?
Do you need to come back out for yours?
Yes, we will.
All right.
You will need to take action.
Okay.
Okay. Be it resolved by the Township Committee of the Township of Hamilton that this meeting be adjourned to an executive session to discuss the following matters which are exempt from public discussion pursuant to the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law. Attorney-client privilege, bond replacement agreement, American Southern Insurance Company, and collective bargaining sergeants. Be it further resolved that the governing body will reconvene in public session and confirm the results of the executive session if there is a majority consensus for action to be taken on the matter tonight.
So moved.
Second.
May I add something to that before you vote on it? Specifically, what we're going to be discussing on my issue is the litigation between Hamilton Township and the bonding company for the Glen Air development. And at the conclusion of the discussion, it is my reasonable belief that the committee will come out and take action with respect to that pending litigation.
Okay.
I want Bob and Phil in there, right?
I don't think that amends my
You don't need
motion.
The motion is second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Are we staying in here?
We could stay in here if it
I'll let
clears
Phil
out.
go, or, because I told him to hang